Alright, welcome to the first video. I'm Dom The Commish, and today we're going to be doing a 2025 mock draft for Dynasty rookies. Now, this channel is going to be mostly about commissioner stuff, but there's only so much you could do with that, so I'm also going to throw in some actual mock draft fantasy football stuff. But this is going to be purely fantasy, and this is going to be your hub of knowledge for anything commissioner related. So, let's get started. I'm going to be mocking the draft. I'm going to be doing the first round because the website doesn't really do a good job with that, as you could say. So I'm going to mock the first round myself, and then we're going to go on and do the rookie draft based on wherever these guys end up. All right, I'm going to do this pretty quickly. I'm not too really crazy about getting these 100% correct. So I'm just going to do what is usually projected of these guys. So, like Tennessee Titans, they're projected. I know they just fired their head coach, and they said that and the head coach is the one that really liked Cam Ward. I'm still going with him at number one. Titans need a QB. They're going to get a QB. Without Deshaun Watson, Browns also go QB here. I think those two are most likely to go 1 and 2, even though they might not be the best in the draft. If this happens, Giants at 3, most likely go corner. I see them going Travis Hunter. I saw a couple videos saying going Abdul Carter or even trading down. I'm also not doing trades in this. We're just keeping this stock. So if this happens right here, I'd see most likely the Giants already getting a quarterback in free agency if this is most likely what's going to happen. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter here. New England, they could definitely use some receiver help. Tedero McMillan's a very good receiver. Definitely could be good. But I think when you have Abdul Carter up there, I just think there's no way that you could possibly let that go. And I have a feeling that the Patriots are going to be favorites to sign T. Higgins if he goes into free agency. So, all right, pick number 5, Jags. Another team desperately needs a corner, and I feel like that is a perfect spot for Mr. Will Johnson to go. He's been solid all year. He's a great corner, good prospect. Raiders, they need a QB. A lot of people have them mocking Tedero McMillan as a receiver. I don't really see that happening because they've already got Jacoby Myers. They've got Brock Bowers. Whoever they have behind there is already going to have a decent amount. Realistically, I would like to go secondary. I'm not opposed to going Malachi Starks here. They could use an O-line help. Honestly, this might be... This is a tough one. Mason, I mean, if the board goes down the way that this goes down, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the board goes like this, if Raiders take Ashton Genty. Because, I mean, that Zamir White, Alexander Madison, and Sincere McCormick, it's not a great running back room. And so, whoever you're going to get at quarterback next year, they could definitely use a guy like Ashton Genty. Now, Jets, their pass rush was really bad last year, which is the reason why I go Michael Williams. Michael Williams, very solid off the edge. I mean, they didn't really get too much pass rush, but that defense is already really good. And most likely they do lose Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So I still think with not Devontae Adams, just Garrett Wilson, I meant. Panthers, we're going to go, and they could also use kind of an edge. I know they were favorites to take Abdul Carter, but I think you go best player available. Mason Graham, really good player at 8 here. Great value. Saints, Chris Olave is super injury prone, and the rest of the receivers also, there's not much to write home about. This is a prime spot for Mr. Tedero McMillan. Chicago Bears, offensive line is really bad, especially in the interior, but there's a lot of value of that down the board. Their defense is pretty good. I think they can keep the defense pretty well, so I'm going to go with probably O-line, Kelvin Banks Jr. Just makes the most sense here. An offensive tackle, San Fran 49ers. Now, see, this is tough because on paper, you see, okay, they've got the quarterback. They've got Christian McCaffrey. They've got the receivers. Most likely here they would probably trade down from this position if I had to guess, trade down and take one of these offensive linemen later. But they don't really have the, well, like I said, we're not doing trades here. So most likely then that turns into maybe one of these edges, or you even just go Will Campbell. I'm going to go Will Campbell here on the offensive line. I just think they need a lot of offensive line help, which is crazy. Cowboys now. Now, Cowboys are who's mocked Ashton Genty the most. But they don't get Ashton Genty in this scenario. And, I mean, I'm looking at best player available, Malachi Starks, but the issue with him is that the Cowboys don't really need secondary. They got Bland, they got Diggs, they've got Malik Hooker. Edge is another one that they don't really need. They could go another receiver. I could see this as a spot where Luther Burden goes. But I'm actually gonna go with Jalen Walker, the linebacker. I think their linebacker room is really bad this year, and they could definitely use a guy that can play coverage and get to the quarterback with Micah Parsons as well. Dolphins, I think Dolphins go best player available here. Malachi Starks, he's an incredible safety. He's on this. Dolphins could use a safety, even though they already have Jalen Ramsey, but they could definitely use help in that department. Now, Colts, I feel like it's very easy. I feel like they go Tyler Warren out of Penn State because that tight end room is just absolutely terrible, and Anthony Richardson needs a good tight end in order to develop someone he can dump the ball off to, someone who can really do everything for this offense. Now, the Atlanta Falcons in the first round have a history of drafting skill position players they don't need. So, as much as they need edge going Nick Scorton and James Pierce Jr., I do think that they go Luther Burden if the board turns out this way. Or I can even see them going Colston Loveland because Kyle Pitts has been absolutely terrible. But I'm going to be real. What the Falcons should do here is take James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Really incredible edge rusher, played a great season all year. Arizona Cardinals. That is where Arizona Cardinals, they're a weird team. They got a lot of talent. Trey McBride, their offensive line is pretty good. Kyler Murray's a decent decent quarterback. That's why the Cardinals are such a weird team. I think they go edge here because Robinson hasn't been that good this year as a rookie, and he's not getting to the quarterback as much. And I think they could use a more pure edge rusher in Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. Now, Bengals are in desperate need of defensive help. So we're going to just click off of all because they can use pretty much any of these guys. If we're looking at defense, Ravel, Morrison, Derek Harmon, Emmett Worry, Tyler Williams, Walter Nolan, Barron, Trey Amos. There's a lot of people that they can use here. I think they most likely are going to go corner. Their corner group is very bad, and they have Trey Hendrickson on the end, which is one of the bright spots of this Bengals team. So I think they do go Siobhan Ravel here. Now Seattle, they need offensive line. Any of these guys, I think most likely they go interior because they got a bunch of good tackles. Tyler Booker, great interior offensive lineman, will be a stud. Buccaneers is a weird one. They just made the playoffs again, and they just crashed out again against the Commanders. Their wide receiver room is getting old. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They could draft Luther Burden. Cade Otton's a good tight end. They don't really need anything. I feel like they go corner, though, and they take from Notre Dame, Benjamin Morrison. No. I think he was injured this year, I'm pretty sure, so he didn't play a lot, but yeah, out for the season with a hip injury, but he's still a great corner. Tennessee could definitely use him. Now, Denver Broncos. I know the mocks have him taking Luther Burden, but I think with Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Troy Franklin, that this Broncos wide receiver room is more than enough to get the job done, which is why I think they go tight end. And I do not think they go Colston Loveland. I think they go Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green. Had overall better stats in all categories than Tyler Warren did. However, Tyler Warren just played in a better division, again, had bigger games, like that game against USC where he had, 12 receptions for 200-something yards. So I think, but Colston Loveland, he's been out for a while, and he's just not, like, when you watch Colston Loveland, I just don't see how he's a first-round talent. He's not as good as Harold Fannin Jr. and Tyler Warren are. They really just isn't. Steelers, George Pickens might be forcing his way out. I think this is where Luther Burden goes. He drops all the way to 21 despite being a top 10 at the beginning of the season. I think the Steelers could definitely use another receiver. They aren't that good enough yet. And they got bounced to the playoffs early again. Chargers, they did the Charger thing. A lot of people want them to take another pass rusher. I could see them taking Igbuka. However, I feel like the more pressing matter is, I feel like they could definitely take a running back here. Omari and Hampton or Cam Scatterbo could also be an option. Maybe they do take wide receiver. Who's the coach? Trey Amos is a bit. Linebackers, they have good linebackers. They could definitely go D tackle. I think they are going to go D tackle. I think we go Derek Harmon here for the Chargers. Solidify that defensive line. I feel like that's very important. Green Bay Packers, they need a secondary player to go along with Jair Alexander. So I think all the corners are gone, which is the issue. So I think they go safety and take Nick Emenwari out of South Carolina. He's a good player. And all good corners are gone. Benjamin Morrison already went. Siobhan Revell, Travis Hunter, obviously, Will Campbell. They're all gone. So I think Packers go Emenwari. Now the Vikings, the last team to get bounced in the playoffs. Sam Darnold is not the guy, and I'd be very surprised if they bring him back and if he gets signed to a huge contract by any other team. I sure hope my Giants don't take him. So, Vikings, strength, receivers, running backs, offensive game, tight end. They've been great in that. Defensive side of the ball, they haven't been as good. I think their offensive line is fine for now, and they can get some more depth in free agency and the draft later. So I'm going to go Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. They need a corner, and there's not much here, and I think he could be a decent corner. Texans, CJ Stroud had a slump year, but they still are in the divisional round in the playoffs. I think there's not many weaknesses on this team. They definitely could go receiver now that Tank Dell is out for most of the season next year, and we don't know if Diggs is going to be around. But I'm going to go offensive line here. When in doubt, if your team close to the top, fix up the offensive line. And Cameron Williams is a guy who they can definitely use to fix that offensive line. Now, LA Rams, on the next one, I feel like this is where Colston Loveland goes. 3 tight ends in the first round is kind of crazy, but these guys all deserve it. Loveland, Harold Fannin, and Tyler Warren have all 3 been crazy good tight ends this year. And there's a lot of tight end needy teams like the Rams, like the Colts, and like the Broncos. They don't really have those good tight ends. So I think Loveland goes here, boosts up that passing game a little bit more for Matthew Stafford. Washington Commanders, I think they go receiver here, and I think they go Emeka Egbuka because they have Terry McLaurin, and that's about it. And if you want to build around Jaden Daniels some more, I think you get him another big boy receiver. Baltimore Ravens, they played great this year. That offensive line and blocking for that run game has been absolutely incredible. Nate Wiggins, their rookie from last year, just had a pick 6. He played really well. So most likely, it says there needs your offensive tackle, corners, guards, linebackers, and receiver. So I think they have Roquan Smith. They're probably not going to draft the linebacker unless they want to develop him under him. I think right here is where I think Josh Simmons will go here. Just boost the once again. If in doubt, boost up the offensive line. With the Bills, I think that they definitely need defensive help, which is where they go with the edge out of Texas A&M, Shamar Stewart. Their defense was good this year, not good enough. They already have Tyreek Stevenson. They have DeMar Hamlin, who posted big numbers this year and was almost in the Pro Bowl. But I mean, even with that, they definitely could still win the Super Bowl, but they need defensive help. Eagles, they have pretty much everything you need, like on this board. Like they don't need tackles, they don't need D tackles, they don't need a running back, they don't need receivers, they don't really need an offensive line. So right here is where Jihad Campbell goes, which is an absolute steal at 30. Their linebacker group is absolutely terrible, and Jihad Campbell's really going to help them with that. Now for the Chiefs, they've got a lot of wide receivers. That's the other thing. It's just one of their needs as wide receivers, but like you have Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown. You have a lot of receiving talent there, and I think Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice can develop into two absolutely amazing players. So, who do I think we go with here? I think you have to get the false start merchant out of there and draft Jonah. I'm sorry if I butcher this. Jonah Saviana out of Arizona. And so I think that you draft him, get Juwan Taylor out of there. And then for the Detroit Lions, which is projected as the Super Bowl champions, one of their biggest weaknesses was corner. And I think Denzel Burke at Ohio State, he had an incredible year, and he's exactly what the Lions need, is a big lockdown corner. So that's the first round. That's how I think the first round is going to go. Now we're going to simulate all the other 7 rounds, and we're going to get to the mock draft for fantasy. All right, welcome to the second part of this video, the 12-team Dynasty League. We're going to be doing 2 quarterback / super flex and no tight end premium. So this is going to be a 12-team mock draft. And so here are our significant results from the first round that I simulated. And so the website wouldn't let me simulate out the rest of the picks, and I didn't want to sit out here simulating the rest of them. So it kind of just, it did a little bit what we like to do. It actually did mock Ashton Genty to the Raiders, which was funny. So we're just going to focus on rounds 2 through 7 and Omari and Hampton going to the Cowboys, which is actually realistic. So yeah, I think we get started. So first pick, I feel like is really easy. It's going to be Ashton Genty on the Raiders. I think most likely the Raiders get a decent quarterback this year in free agency. I can see them getting Kirk Cousins. I can see them getting Justin Fields, even Sam Darnold, even though he played horrible last night. Did they get a QB in this mock? I didn't really look. They have Jalen Milroe too in this simulation, which I feel like he's going to need a strong run game. And Ashton Genty at number 1, I feel like is just that guy, And I think very close is, for 2, is Teteroya McMillan on the Patriots. So, oh no, Teteroya McMillan's not on the Patriots. That's in this sim. Teteroya McMillan on the Saints. He fell a little bit. Most likely he goes at 4 to the Patriots right here, or even 8 or even 6 to the Raiders. He just fell because none of these teams really need a big receiver, and there's a lot better players on the board. But Teteroya McMillan is a stud. We know he's a stud at this position, and he's going to be a great wide receiver for years to come. Now, next one is really interesting because Also, I should mention that this isn't based on like any team needs or something. This is just that like if everyone's picking the best player available, who do they pick? In a 2 QB league, I think next goes Cam Ward on the Titans because that team is not as bad as a number one overall pick team should be. Their quarterback play was just absolutely horrendous. Will Levis to Mason Rudolph was absolutely terrible. And I feel like Cam Ward can come in. That's Cam Ward. Cam Ward can come in and really take this team to a different level. He's got already Calvin Ridley, who's a great number one receiver. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Chika Okonkwo. That defense is solid as well. But I just think that Cam Ward is going to be a stud. Shedeur Sanders, I'm a little bit more worried about. And at the 104, granted, if he plays a decent bit of receiver, I'm going to go Travis Hunter on the Giants. He's the number 2 to Malik Neighbors. And if he plays receiver full time, I think that he could even be the 101 over Ashton Genty. But the issue is if he's going to play corner and receiver, the injury risk is enough. But this guy is just some special talent, and he deserves to be at least a top 5 pick, even if we don't know what he's going to play. Obviously, if he plays corner, he doesn't even get drafted, maybe like the 3rd round or something. But most likely, he plays corner and a little bit of receiver. I'm still taking him at 104 because he's just an unreal talent. Which leads us into the 105, where we go Shedeur Sanders on the Browns. Browns have a very big track record at ruining quarterbacks, and I feel like Shedeur will be no different if he goes to the Browns. But in a 2 QB league, especially if you need one, you're taking him maybe even as early as the 103 if Cam Ward goes in the top 2. But I feel like Genty and McMillan are very good in the top 2 and should stay there. Next up is the 106, and it's between a couple players. I feel like you have Tyler Warren on the Colts, Luther Burden on the Steelers. You also have Colson Loveland and Emeka Egbuka as well. Not to mention Omarion Hampton on the Cowboys. You also have Trey Harris on the Bucks, who can be decent. Xavier Restrepo. Ignore the Colson Loveland, Harold Fannin picks in this draft. Mason Taylor on the Bengals. They already got a lot of tight ends, though. Caleb Johnson on the Broncos. That's also a good one. Matthew Golden also on the Steelers. I guess they draft 2 receivers in this scenario. But I'm going to go Luther Burden on the Steelers. Once again, really good talent. Had to deal with a lot of bad quarterback play, which is probably what he's going to have to deal with in the Steelers as well, which leaves Team 7 free to take Tyler Warren. Great tight end. Gonna be a stud. He's almost Brock Bowers-like in the way that he just can play so many different positions. Now Team 8 here is gonna take... there's still a couple options. There's more tight ends, but I think that they go to running back Omarion Hampton on the Cowboys. Omarion Hampton's a great talent out of UNC. UNC didn't have the greatest season, which kind of limited his production a little bit. Which is why I think, which is crazy, I believe he went in round 5. Let me see if I can find him. Where is he? Maybe round 6? Where are you? I didn't realize it's Aiden Huntington. Was it round 4 maybe? Where did he go? I don't even remember where he went. I'm talking about Cam Scatabo, and I don't remember where he went. Here it is. He went to the Panthers at 148. That is completely unrealistic. He's going to at least be around 2 to 3 talent. But the issue with that is that in this mock draft, we can't be taking Cam Scatabo that early, even though he is a crazy good talent. Kyle Monaghan also goes to the Raiders, the Rutgers running back. I do like him too. But right now we're kind of staying around this area, and Omarion Hampton's a great shot for the Cowboys. which leads into the 109, which is going to be Harold Fannin. You know, I feel like it's going to be kind of like a... These should be 10s. I don't know why they aren't 10s. Oh, no, because it goes just back to 1.1. Okay, that's fine then. Harold Fannin Jr. is just a stud once again, and Bo Nix has looked absolutely incredible this year. And so I feel like he's going to use him really well if he goes to the Broncos, which is good. And it leads at the 110 to go Emeka Egbuka. You know, the number 2 to Terry McLaurin, he's getting older. Terry McLaurin's getting older. He's not going to be around the league that much longer, so I feel like Emeka Egbuka could be a very good stash play. You know, good in the future. Now we start getting into these round 2s kind of area. So, Caleb Johnson on the Broncos is going to be my next pick. 2 Broncos going back to back. Because that running back room is awful, and Caleb Johnson is a very good running back, and I feel like he could definitely take the starting job over Javonte Williams, Audric Estime, and anyone else. And I feel like he could lead this backfield. He's a very solid back in a very bad Iowa offense. The next person we're going to go with here for the 112, we're going to keep Colston Loveland on the board for a while because I'm not high on him. Like I said, the Rams took him in the first round because they needed a tight end, and I assume that they'll like him. They pick the players that they like, and they're very good at it. So I'm going to go with the Giants taking Quinn Ewers is fucking hilarious over Jalen Milroe. That's absolutely hilarious. I'm going to go Xavier Restrepo. On the Jags. Because that receiving room, I know it has Christian Kirk in it. It is kind of bloated. With Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, and Gabe Davis. I feel like he comes in at the 3 for Gabe Davis. Davis can be a decent player. If they take him this high, then they obviously see something in him, which I feel like is going to be good for them. Which is going to, yeah, I think it's going to be good for him. So that's the 112. 201, we're going to start out strong with Trey Harris of the Bucks. He's also going to be like Emeka Egbuka. He's going to be kind of a stash play, you know, stash him until Mike Evans and Chris Godwin leave, and then he's going to be the number 1 guy most likely, unless they draft a receiver in the coming years. But yeah, solid talent. Ole Miss has a track record of producing good receivers like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. At the 202, we're going to pair Tyrone McMillan with a new good quarterback, and that's going to be Jalen Milroe on the Raiders. I know he had a terrible end of the season, but the rushing upside could make him average at least 15 points a game, and that's all you need in a Dynasty league. If you have a starting QB who can give you 15 points a game, he'll probably start for you, unless you got like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts on your roster. And then we're going to go for another QB. We're going to go Quinn Ewers on the Giants. Because in this scenario, you got the Giants with, I don't know, did they draft a running back too? They drafted a receiver at a UNLV, Ricky White, and a tight end. They get all skill position. A tackle. They had nothing in the 6th, and a guard in the 7th, and a receiver. So they've got a good run game. And Tyrone Tracy, he's been great this year. Theo Johnson, although he didn't put up the numbers, he looked better every single game he was in. And then obviously you got Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson had a ton of targets. Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton. We're probably going to sign at least one offensive weapon as well in free agency. So I think Quinn Ewers is in a great position to be a solid fantasy QB, at least for a year if he starts. I'm assuming that all these QBs that, besides, I guess, Jackson Dart, I remember seeing. Where is he? Here. Jackson Dart to the Seahawks. He's probably not going to start just yet because of Geno Smith. So I'm a little bit lower on him. But if they're projected to start, if they're on the team right now, I'm going to say they are starting. And the 204, this is where we're finally going to go. Colston Loveland. You know, I feel like this is definitely a bit low for him. He could probably go over the QBs, but QBs are just valuable in this 2 QB league. And he could probably go over. He could maybe squeeze his way into the first round, but you already have 2 tight ends, Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin Jr., who are a lot better than Loveland. But I will say that Loveland's definitely in the best situation. I guess the best situation besides Tyler Warren. I think the Colts are a great place to go, especially if you're tight end, because they have absolutely no one in that position. But Colston Loveland at the 204, so you get Travis Hunter and Colston Loveland. That's not a bad draft so far for the 104. Round 2, we still have Matthew Golden as a wide receiver 3 on Texas. He's not going to be as good. Mason Taylor as well. He's not going to get as much playing time. Chiefs. So I'm going to go towards... Let's see. Who are we going to go for? We are going to go with... The next player we're going to go with is going to be out of Jacksonville, and it's going to be... was it Henderson or Judkins that went there? Quinshon Judkins. I'm not even going to try and type that in. You know, Travis Etienne looked awful this year, and I feel like Quinshon Judkins can definitely take the job over him. I mean, he's always looked good. He's got the big name value. He was, I guess, he had a slow year this year at Ohio State. So did Ollie Gordon on the Seahawks. He's probably not even going to be drafted at this position. But and we're not even going to talk about Kyron Lacey, dude. Go to jail, man. Like, you deserve it. Yeah, but he's a solid player, and I feel like with a team that'll use him right, he can definitely be good. The next player, I'm going to go with, might be surprising, but it's going to be Cam Scatterbo. You know, had he been drafted in a better situation, he would be going a lot higher. But, I mean, he's honestly the second best running back in this class. I wouldn't be surprised if, instead of Omarion Hampton to the Cowboys here, it would be Cam Scatterbo. You know, he just absolutely blew it up for Arizona State this year, and is one of the reasons they made it so far. And I think at the Panthers, I think it's too good of a value to pass up, considering if Chuba Hubbard ever goes down, Cam Scatterbo will be there to pick up the pieces, and I feel like he'll be good. He'll definitely be over Jonathan Brooks at least. Next up here, we're going to grab Matthew Golden from the Steelers. Did they draft a receiver? What did they draft in the first round? They drafted Kelvin Banks. He fell super far. So, he's most likely, if George Pickens leaves, he'll be the number 3 most likely. Him, probably like Van Jefferson, or who else am I missing? Calvin Austin. It'll probably be the 3 of them for like the wide receiver 3 spot. Obviously, Luther Burden in this case is going to be the number 1. But Russ is a good quarterback. He could probably get the ball to him. And he'll be a solid guy at the 207. He's not going to be anything that you're not going to ask for. The next guy we're going to take is... We're going to take out of Texas. Oh, no. Unless Devo leaves. But right now, Isaiah Bond would be the 4 or the 5. So really, like, I don't like Isaiah Bond here at all. Giddens I don't like as well. Ricky White, he could be On the Giants, he could definitely get playing time. Ollie Gordon probably isn't going to get time on the Steelers. Not Steelers. The Seahawks. I think I'm going to go Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Johnson. Because, he carved up Penn State, and he went for like 180 yards. He's a great receiver. And, why did I put Oregon? It's going to be Denver Broncos. And, he could definitely win over the starting job over Mims and Troy Franklin. Probably not going to happen, but he's a decent value for where you're getting him at. And the next one I think you go with is Travion Henderson out of Washington. Now, Travion Henderson in Washington here, I'm going to move this over, is an interesting pick because you have Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler, but Brian Robinson looked awful this year, especially at the end. Like, he was okay during the beginning of the year, but when you have a quarterback with the talent of Jaden Daniels, and I know their offensive line isn't amazing, but when you have the talent that they have on that roster, and you're averaging, like, I don't know how many yards per carry. Like, well, let's see, real quick, Brian Robinson Jr. Let's go ahead and take a look at his stats right here real quick, right? Is that... No. Oh, that was against the Bucks though. But yeah, against the Bucks, 1.6 yards per game. He was 4.3 per carry, which isn't too terrible, but he was also injured a lot, 2 fumbles. The receiving game isn't that great. And Austin Eckler, they also have still. So honestly, Travion Henderson is a decent bet to take over the job from Brian Robinson if he continues on this downward spiral that he's been on in the last couple weeks. The next one after Travion Henderson is probably going to be Mason Taylor out of LSU for the Bengals. If the Bengals believe in this guy, they have a lot of tight ends already. Mike Gesicki, Eric All, who looked really good before he got hurt. Who's the other guy? Drew Sample, who's a bit older as well. But if they believe in this guy to take the reins one day, like, go for it. I mean, they could use some tight end talent in there, even though they already got the gritty master, Mike Gesicki. After Mason Taylor from LSU, we're going to go with the Chargers' Jaden Higgins. Chargers could use another pass catcher. Lad McConkey can't do everything. And Quentin Johnston's awful. Josh Palmer's a deep threat. They have no tight ends. Honestly, in round 1, they could definitely have been one of the teams to take Loveland first over the Rams, but yeah, their tight end room is terrible. So I think they add another receiver, Jaden Higgins. He's solid. Had a great game against Arizona State in that game that they did lose, but he's still a very solid player. I would like to go Alec Ayominor next, but the issue is that the situation that he's in is just really bad. With the Chiefs, there's too many receivers on that. He's not going to get any playing time unless he really proves himself out. So I think this is where we go with Ricky White on the Giants. In this scenario, they got Quinn Ewers, and they got a better QB situation than last year. Travis Hunter as well. In this scenario, if Travis Hunter plays full-time receiver, it's not going to be this good. But if he doesn't, then Ricky White can definitely take over the 3 from Slayton or Hyatt or whoever's going to be there. He definitely has a chance at that. And then you go with, in the first, we're going to go Isaiah Bond. He's very injury prone, but his talent is through the roof. I mean, like, if this guy could just stay healthy for the entire Texas season, he probably would have gone over Matthew Golden. But he just isn't. And also, he's stuck in a really bad situation. Round 3 is going to kind of be like, here are the guys that got stuck in really bad situations but have a lot of talent. The first round and the second round are kind of like, all right, we're looking for the guys that have good situations. Like, there shouldn't be a world where Ricky White and Jaden Higgins go over Isaiah Bond, but Isaiah Bond has a really bad situation, especially with injuries as well. Which is why the next person we're going to go with is Ollie Gordon III. Who's going to Seattle. Because it's a very big risk to have Ollie Gordon because he was viewed as one of the top prospects in the transfer portal. And because he was this top prospect, everyone expected him to do really good things at Oklahoma State. Or no, he didn't transfer. Oh, shoot, I'm thinking of Quinshon Judkins. But he was supposed to do big things at Oklahoma State. They sucked this year. He didn't do much because they sucked and had to pass so much. I think that if he goes, he's probably going to go to a team that's better than Seattle for running back room because they've got Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet already. Ollie Gordon's not going to get much playing time, but I mean, if he impresses, he can definitely win the starting job over either of them. I don't think that either of them has their spot completely locked in. And now this is where we go with the Chiefs receiver, Alec Ayomanor. You know, if you're playing with Patrick Mahomes and you prove yourself, you're going to get a lot of points. That's all I'm going to say about Ayomanor here. And then we're going to go with another Chief, DJ Giddens, once again. It's just... It's just, not a great situation because he's on the Chiefs and they've already got Isaiah Pacheco, but he's been injured a lot. So, honestly, it could be he could definitely go over these three guys, maybe even Ricky White and Jaden Higgins. But with Isaiah Pacheco, if he plays a full season, DJ Giddens is not getting much touch of the ball, which also is why we're going to go Jackson Dart at the 305 for Seattle. The issue with Jackson Dart is that, once again, he goes into a place where he's not going to be the starter, not right away at least. He's already pretty old for a prospect, and Geno Smith at least has probably 1 or 2 more years left of him. If he's bad, Jackson Dart definitely could start, which is why you definitely could move him up more. But he goes here at the 105. So this guy's a very QB-needy team. He gets Shador and Jackson Dart as some insurance. The next guy we're going to go with is Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, I think it said. Was it Miami? It was Miami. So, Saints, this is a good situation, but not as excited as a player for Elijah Arroyo. I feel like Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo are really those studs on that Miami team. Elijah Arroyo is still good, but he's not as good as those two. And he's also a tight end in a non-tight end premium league. He's a very risky person to take here. The next guy I'm going to go with is Antoine Wells Jr. Going to the Rams. This is kind of like a Sean McVay knows what he's doing in the draft. I mean, he drafted Puka Nacua in the 5th round 2 years ago, and Cooper Kupp's getting older there. If Puka goes down again like he did last year for a while, I think Antoine Wells is just going to get fed the ball, and if they draft him, most likely they like him. Um, all these other guys in this round, I mean, like I said, not getting started Kyron Lacey. Prather, that Minnesota Vikings wide receiver room is a bit loaded. I don't think he gets too much time in there. Gunnar Helm over Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers, absolutely not. So then that takes us to round 4. Also, yeah, Will Howard, probably not going to start over um, uh, Russell Fields, whoever they ended up deciding to keep. Which means the next person that most likely goes, I do like Kyle McCord, but not to the Titans when they already got Cam Ward. They drafted back-to-back QBs in this draft. See, this is why I did the first round, because it was going to do. Because look at this first round draft pick that it did, right? That's fine. McMillan's fine. Genty's fine. Starks is fine. How's Abdul Carter falling at 8? That's not going to happen anymore. They've got Falcon taking a corner over an edge, which I don't think is going to happen. They actually have a good Buka to the Commanders. They have the Bengals taking a receiver, which they do not need. What did they say this? They should pick 19 for 33, 67, and 93. All right. Yeah, but a lot of these just don't make as much sense as they should. The next guy we're going to go with is the Syracuse receiver, Aronde Gadsden II, who goes to the Patriots. You know, they drafted a receiver earlier, I believe, right? Did they or not? I think they did, didn't they? Was it Restrepo? No, the Jags. Who drafted? Oh, so they didn't draft the receiver earlier. Oh, yeah, because I thought they drafted Tenor McMillan for a second. No, yeah. So if this guy can become the number 1 target for Drake May, who looked absolutely incredible this year, I mean, I'm all in on taking Aronde Gadsden II out of Syracuse. And then I think the next guy you go with is Curtis Rourke. Or is it Curtis Rourke? Yeah, we're going to go Curtis Rourke. He's another quarterback. And, I mean, Jalen Milroe is not locked in to start for the Raiders if he goes there. Curtis Rourke could definitely steal that job, even though he didn't have a great game against Notre Dame. I mean, that was a tough team, and he played well all season, I think. The next guy we're going to go the Bengals receiver, Theo Weiss Jr. Because if he can slot in and be the number 3 guy for the Bengals, he'll be at least a solid player, hopefully averaging like 8 or 9 points a game, especially with Joe Burrow at the helm. I mean, you saw what Andre Yoshivas has been doing since he got into the league. I mean, he's been doing really well. So now we have 2 picks left. And I think the first pick goes to the Giants tight end, Terrence Ferguson. Because Theo Johnson was good last year, but he wasn't great, and neither is Daniel Bellinger, so I feel like they could take the job over one of them. And that's a good idea to go here at the 311. Now, the 112, you have 2 receivers so far. Let's get a running back in the name of, let's see. In this scenario, I mean, I like Kyle Monahay out of Rutgers, but he's not going to go anywhere in the draft if he goes to the Raiders, which kind of sucks because he's very good. I'm going to take Le'Veon Moss with the last pick in this draft, and he goes to the Jags. Because he's had a very good year. once again, Travis Etienne's job is not safe. So if the other guy they drafted, Quinshon Judkins, if he doesn't go do well and Etienne continues to struggle, I feel like one of these two guys can take the job over him. All right, so this is the final draft, the final mock draft, and the final simulator up here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first video from the channel. The next time I'll post, it'll be about a full rundown of how to run your league and how to, set up ESPN or Sleeper to best make your leagues and make yourself a good commissioner. So